policies? Hearing none. Report of the Planning and Economic Development Director.
Okay, so in B, have B in your folders. Just a brief update. I don't know if this is probably decisions that were rendered in stamp of the clerk today are the Ryder truck modification decision, home plate, electronic message board signage, and site plan review for the water treatment plant in the town of Norton. So those will be in a 20-day appeal period. Current applications in process. Tonight we're hearing a special permit modification for Three Lopes Drive, and Walter Hormano's here to speak on behalf of them. Special permit 476 is a new special permit, and that's for a office warehouse flex space. It's kind of an interesting concept. It's two buildings, and the interiors would be flexible use space for contractors, potentially. That's what they described it as to me. We're meeting with them tomorrow morning, and they're coming in for the hearing on the 19th.
Whereabouts is 324?
It's right to the right of self-storage, so if you're coming down,
Okay.
it's on the same side. Right before, there's like materials being stored there right now,
okay.
outside, across from the Glen. Some other active construction administrative items. There was an abutter complaint that you might have seen the email on today at 379 Old Colony, which was a site plan review that we approved recently, and I spoke to the applicant about putting some shrubs up potentially to screen it. Bob Kimball called me this morning, and there was some concern coming from the Board of Selectmen, so we addressed it, and it should be dealt with. David was very amenable. So. Other planning news, interviews will be conducted for the vacant administrative position starting next week. I'm looking at 6 candidates right now, so that's great. I'll be on vacation next week, starting on Wednesday to Wednesday, so that shouldn't interrupt things, and just wanted to let you know. Grant has been submitted for Norton Business Park to the Federal Economic Development Administration for assistance in funding the wastewater infrastructure. That's in the pipeline to be reviewed. We'll hear back on that shortly. And then the PNF project notification form has been filed. I think I'd mentioned that last time. And there's an ongoing discussion about some zoning rewrites and potentially getting an article on the town meeting warrant for next spring town meeting for something like maybe $40,000 for a consultant to do that. So at least that's moving forward, which is great. And that is all.
Was the solar question resolved by Mike?
The solar question.
I was on an email where solar people were asking.
Oh,
yeah,
if they could
yeah,
hook
yeah,
up,
hook
right.
to
So
National
that's
Grid
Clapp
stuff.
Street, Wheaton's, yeah. So Brian, the building inspector, I think he just hadn't had a chance to get back to someone because they were supposedly given the green light. And Brian should be following up on that. I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Where we have a minute or two, I don't know if folks have had a chance to review the November 14th minutes. Were there any changes that needed to be made? If there are none, is there a motion to accept?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes of November 14th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. And one other thing other than our special permit modification is bills payable. We have a schedule for $2,776.11 coming out of our budget, plus $680 out of a revolving account, for a total of $3,456.11. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to authorize payment?
Make a motion, we approve the payment of $3,456.11
Second.
as stipulated.
Is there a motion and second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. For the
Tabitha, do they know we're having a meeting?
Yeah, that's just how it
Large
is,
group.
unfortunately.
All right, we're at 7:20. We have a special permit site plan review modification, 3 Lopes Drive. Mr. Hermano?
I realized I don't have materials in here. I thought I did. So
I'm sorry?
I have them.
You can look on the phone.
So under one is also the report, the application, peer review report from Armory Engineers, site plans, stormwater report checklist. And I'll have Walter introduce the project.
Yes, thank you, Tabitha. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. I know I put on about 10 pounds. So I'm not going to eat any more pecan pie for a while, but it was homemade too, just in case anyone wants to know. I do not have the report yet from Armory. I did not see that. I don't know if you were going to forward that to me in advance, so
Oh, I apologize.
if there's any questions on there, I can try and answer them right now. It's not a problem.
I can go through it. I had a couple questions, but if you want to just introduce it first.
Sure.
and then-
Sounds good, sounds good. Thank you for hearing us again. We're back here for minor modifications. There was 3 modifications that we're requesting. One was to locate the infiltration of stormwater, the excess to be generated off of impervious surfaces. That's the roof and the parking lot. There's only 3 spaces here. We want to infiltrate that underground, and we decided to keep it in the area where there was actual perk test completed. We had thought to move it closer to the building, but we already had the test conducted, so we stuck with that area. But it is underground, so there's no accumulation of water above ground, realizing there's a mosquito threat every year, so underground is better. This system consists of 30 infiltrator chambers that can handle all the runoff from the parking lot and the roof right through the 100-year storm. There'll be no backup, there'll be no surcharge. We're not required to do that, but the owner wanted to actually build it a little bit bigger to make it last longer. The other modification we're asking for is the size of the building. The applicant, JLW, who is the owner of NE Bridge Contractors, decided to increase the size of the building from 7,400 to 7,500, make it an even 100 by 75 feet. And the third modification is the actual use of the building. A little housekeeping first. I remember someone posed a good question the last time we met. They have an existing Quonset soft top building over here. The owner wishes to continue using that exclusively for his vehicle repairs. If someone had asked what was that building going to be used for, considering there's a new building being built. I didn't have the best answer that night. If I had one, I can't remember. But I talked to the owner, and he did say it's for the vehicle repairs. The new building, he wants to use exclusively for welding and fabrication of his equipment that he builds or modifies that he has to use on the rails or bridges because he's a specialty bridge inspector across the country. And that's what he would do exclusively inside this building, his proposed 7,500 square foot warehouse.
How
So-
many square feet is the closet off the top?
That one is 1,800 square feet. So those are the 3 minor modifications which brought us back here for site plan and special permit.
What was the original intent or previous intent of the new building? Was that going to be for vehicle repair, as I
I-
recall, or am I wrong there?
That was put down on the plan, and I was discussing that with the owner, and he had a change in his mind, and he said he doesn't want to do that in that building. He slightly corrected me and said, I'm not going to do that in that building. We're just going to be putting
Okay.
welding and fabrication of.
Yeah, that's how I recalled it, that
Yeah.
that was the original intent.
So,
Okay.
So the earlier approval was for the auto repair.
right. I
That's
think
the
it was called
decision I wrote.
vehicle repair.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not repairing automobiles in the sense that you go to the mechanic with your cars. He swaps out engines. He occasionally has to make a repair on a vehicle. He has numerous vehicles in the yard, and those will be done in this existing 1,800 square foot building. His welding and fabrication of his equipment will be done in the new proposed 7,500 square foot building.
Where does that work take place now?
currently in this
Is that
small
all-
building.
All in that, within
Yeah,
that?
which is why he wants to put a bigger building up on the property, because he just doesn't have the space. A lot of his work, he may have some vehicles sitting out in the yard that he has to modify, his equipment, not vehicles, his equipment, and he prefers to be undercover, under a roof.
Can I ask you a question, Walter?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you know the threshold for sprinklering for that use?
This use is considered by the IBC, I believe, as an F2, and I think the threshold is 12,000 square feet.
12,000 square feet?
I believe so, yes.
That's not what our fire deputy told me.
I'm not the fire prevention expert, but we'd be glad to discuss it with him.
What will you be doing for fire suppression in the building?
I'm not sure that he has any intent to put a fire suppression system in the building, because the code doesn't require it. He will have all the necessary fire alarms in the building that the fire department requires.
So the use of hazardous, because there's going to be hazardous material use, correct?
That does not change for anything on the property, that's correct. He has small volume quantities of materials, oil, WD-40. Those are maintained currently out in his storage trailers and as needed inside of his building right here where he does his vehicle repairs. He also has small quantities of gas or oxygen in order to do welding. He has small quantities of waste oil from waste oil changes on his vehicles. Again, small quantities, and most of it is his storage of new product. Maybe 12 of this or 20 of that. He's not out there with underground storage tanks. He's not storing thousands of gallons of hazardous waste on the property. He's a listed very small quantity generator, a record generator. He maintains that listing. That hasn't changed. And his volume of generation is not going to be changing then compared to anything that we previously proposed.
I kind of think we need a decision from the fire department regarding sprinkling the building. It's like, I thought it was 10,000 square feet.
Under, yeah,
David Miles informed me that the threshold was 7,500, and this building is 7,500. With the additional soft-top building, that's my question. He said it was at or below, but that was based on a conversation I had on the phone, so.
we have a requirement, local requirement that anything over 10,000 be sprinklered. So I'm not familiar with the 7,500 threshold. If there's some state building code that deals with that, my guess is that 7,500, someone's going to make a decision to make that building 7,499. Just
I researched the uses under the IBC 2015, and when you look at the use of the building, it's classified as an F2. If I'm correct in that, I think it's F2. And when you go to the table and you look at that use for the size of the building, I believe it has to be greater than 12,000 square feet to require automatic sprinklers.
but we have a local bylaw that sets it at 10.
Understood, understood.
Other questions?
I do have a question about the site plan. The landscaping that you've shown on the previous decision site plan is not on this plan, and I don't know if that was an oversight or if that was intentionally done, but there was buffer plantings in this bottom corner, and there was a detail on the page 4 that you had before that isn't shown.
Plantings that were shown before, I do not fully comprehend why they were there. There was a carryover from previous work. If there are any buffer plantings required, Pretty sure my client would be in agreement to do that. But the buffer plantings, I didn't understand where that had come from, done previously by the previous engineer, because they're outside of the applicable buffer zone for the wetlands.
But we generally do like to see a buffer around development, because if you're just building up to the lot line, then you're not allowing for any screening between you and if they don't. You know.
Yep.
So that is part of our zoning bylaw.
Yep. Well, I think in the rear here, I believe there's still a proposed area to be loamed and seeded.
Right,
off of his
that was
property
on the
line.
other plan too, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about this area down here.
Right, yep. Down in this area, I believe he has a relative that lives in this house right here. And I think that maybe because it was a relative living there, they really didn't think that was necessary. They have a very active yard, and I think any plantings in that area may not do well, they may not last.
So they're submitting a modified site plan without those plantings.
That's correct.
Was the original site plan approved with, I remember this discussion because Mr. Whitkus owns that building as well. And I frankly don't remember the outcome, but there was discussion around buffer, and I don't recall whether a buffer was ultimately required. I just don't remember.
It's written in the
I don't think we
decision.
discussed that.
It's-
We don't
it's-
discuss the buffer?
No, I think we discussed the
the bill?
back part where the loam is, but I don't remember discussing it on the bottom part.
I mean, I think I just remember reviewing it, and they had it, and we said they have it. Now they don't have it, so that's up to you guys. They don't have it.
And again, I'm not trying to pull anything funny, I just did not know where that came from. And in talking.
Right, I just noticed there was something gone from the plan,
Right,
so.
you're absolutely correct. You know, and in talking with the owner, he said he didn't understand why that was there either, so that's why I removed it. He did keep, well, we did keep everything off property in the back there, of which that neighbor, he actually has a very good relationship with that person to begin with.
Right, so. I mean, the buffer requirement would need a waiver traditionally. This is fun, sorry about the copying, guys. I think I screwed up.
Yeah, just thinking about, that's fine now that they know the person and if it's a relative and all that, but things change over time, If that house changes hands, would that cause any concern if there's no buffer between the properties?
And then conservation agent did want to know if you'd restored that area off property yet. So has that been done yet?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Did you want to go over the four suggestions that Amory had? Talking about putting a catch basin in the middle of and some of the bends in the drainage pipe. And either having manholes there or
Right, so Amory did have some engineering comments about the bends in the drain pipe and where the catch basins could be placed. So can I forward this to you?
Yes, by all means.
For alterations on the plan that would help with the drainage scheme. And then this is just about the planting schematic that I mentioned that's not shown. So that's item 3. And then the item 4 being the applicability of the Norton Stormwater Bylaw. So they noticed that the proposed disturbance does not exceed the 1 acre, so it wouldn't apply. But if it did, they told me that it complies anyway. So I think you're good there. That's all I had.
Right, was there also a lighting, there's no lighting plan? What do you have for lighting on this building?
Currently, there is no lighting on the property except maybe a light around this existing building. I know the inside's lit for sure, but we have proposed down lighting, wall packs on the outside corners of the building.
Is that on?
Again, he's not trying to light up his whole yard. He has portable equipment that lights up his work when he's on highways and railroads and so forth, and bridges. But he doesn't need that, he doesn't turn it on. We've just proposed some lighting around the building for safety. It's not for him to sit in his yard. It would be very limited.
So if that's not on there, can that be added to,
It's on here.
is it
I
in there
don't see
included?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're marked on here.
Are they?
Yeah, it's the second one.
Okay. DSFL.
He's set way back off the road, but, you know, we are aware of trying not to create too much excess light, and it would be down lighting, and again, just enough to provide safety to walk around the building.
Is there any painting work being done? I know he's gonna be doing welding and fabricating and
Did you say painting?
painting of
No.
of the vehicles?
No, none that I'm aware of. He has a lot of equipment like barges. A lot of his product is aluminum or stainless steel. He's on the water a lot. It's been some time, but when I went through his inventory, you know, I recall there might have been some small quantities of paints, you know, maybe a quart here or a quart there, but nothing in the sense that you would find at a auto body shop.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
like a paint room where they could paint a vehicle and make it
Oh,
look
no,
nice.
clearly not that, no.
Okay.
He doesn't have a spray booth or a paint room or a hood. He has nothing like that now, and he doesn't propose to do anything like that. I can discuss with him, you know, some type of buffer along that property line to appease the board if that's, you know, required. That's nothing that I think he would be objectionable to. He didn't want to do that because he felt it was in an area that was heavily trafficked, you know, coming off the end of the road here. But
I mean, is
I
it
could
easy to
discuss it
turn
with
around
him.
vehicles in that corner? What's the need for all the pavement? Is he parking things down there?
Well, there's a driveway right here to get to this house, and the former planting, I think, covered right over the driveway, right over the entrance between the road and the driveway.
No, I'm talking about the corner over here.
Oh, down in
Where
this
the storm
corner?
tech chambers are, where you changed it from an infiltration basin
Yeah,
to a storm tech.
yeah, he has equipment storage in this area. We've designed this for H20, H20 loading, so if he wanted to park a heavy vehicle on top of the chambers, he could. That was his first realization to the open infiltration basin. He said, I need to park equipment here, and I need to turn around. He said, I need that underground. I said, okay.
So you're parking and turning around equipment, and there's no buffer
To buffer
to
to,
whoever's next door.
there is no one to the rear.
At this point.
Yeah, I don't know if there will be. They're very close to the highway. I mean, it is industrial land. And I don't, if it was residential to the rear, I'd fully understand.
Isn't that tree back
If there is some, you know, if there is a
I'm not
planting.
talking about to the rear, I'm talking about to the south.
Oh, okay, to this, to the west, right here, next to the house number 6. There is an existing tree line. And I don't know how far it carries over to this house. There is sporadic trees located in this area. But you can see currently the house and the yard and vice versa.
The representative doesn't move there.
Again, I think that, I'll have to look at the previous submittal where we had the buffer zone planting shown on the plan. But I think it might have went right over the driveway.
So that structure there is accessed through Lopes Drive also?
Yes, that's correct.
And is it just all gravel once the road ends,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Even this here is gravel. It's not, the entire road is
Or
not
I guess it's
paved.
outlined here where the edge of existing gravel. guess, runs around.
Yep. Right, this is the full width, 50 feet for the private way, but the actual gravelled surface is about 30 feet.
Yeah, okay.
Off to the side of that is either dirt, maybe a bush, or a weed, or a tree. But it's a very open area. It was a former gravel pit, is my understanding, so vegetation was essentially totally cleared out. There are, on his other properties over here, not shown on this plan, but he has plantings of blueberries. He has nice stand of trees. There's a pond up in the front here. He's kept that as vegetated, I believe, as what he found it, if not made it more vegetated. But everything to the rear remains an open area because it was a former gravel pit. Little bit of vegetation around the perimeter on this side, just in the corner here, not very heavily between the house and his yard. It's very visible. There's no denying that. You can see the house from the yard. I think his son, I want to say his son lives here. They come and go through that gravel drive right to get to Lopes Drive.
So in that corner there, where you said he's gonna be doing the turnaround, there's currently a tree line, right? There's trees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe, if you want to
Yeah,
pass
we
this
just-
over to Tabitha just to show her.
Yeah, he may
Google Earth?
back up in this area. He may park a piece of equipment in that area. It's not like it's a full, cul-de-sac turnaround
The
in that
top left
corner.
is the corner that we're talking about.
It's like this then. There's trees.
Not the kind that deer like either.
Which kind is this?
All right, so we have, if you will, a couple loose ends, not the least of which is Mr. Hermano hasn't had a chance to review Amory's comments. A couple of them, I think will require some review from an engineering perspective in terms of the drain lines and how the bends might be accessed. I'd ask the board in terms of, again, I remember it being discussed, but the buffer, the buffer between the two areas, whether the board, particularly where apparently the first approved site plan does show a buffer, whether the board wants to continue with that requirement. In this case, we'd ask Mr. Hermano to provide us with something, or whether the board wants to just let it go. Or not just let it go, but waive that.
I think if the site currently looks the way that satellite picture did, I think that's enough of a buffer for me.
Yeah, I think
I can't
we
speak
need
to the
some
board.
clarity as to the existing conditions.
Yeah.
Although I would just offer that if in fact you're comfortable with that, I think we want to memorialize that
Yeah.
by requiring that remain untouched, if that's what your pleasure is, as opposed to some additional plantings. So let me get a sense from the board. Are you comfortable with the site as it stands, as long as it stays that way?
Yeah.
Could you, for purposes of the site plan, show the existing vegetation? And my sense is that would be a requirement of the special permit modification, or the special permit modification.
Yeah, I see it.
Showing-
I'm sorry.
Just showing the existing trees and the requirement that they stay in place.
Yeah, I could improve the site plan to show the trees that exist over here, just so we're clear between the house
Right.
and the
Right.
yard. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be easily done. That's not
Yeah,
a
because this
problem.
plan here shows it up to, not very far over, but from the pictures, it looks like it goes quite a ways in front of the house.
Yeah, I can add the trees in this area between the house and the yard. I see that, our vegetation line ends right here, so I can improve that to show what's here between the house and the yard, and propose that it remain.
Right.
Yep.
Yes, that's fine.
And the only other item that we're not clear on is whether in fact the building would be required to be sprinkled by some code that at least I'm not.
Deputy Miles stipulated a whole 3 or 4 conditions here for a welding and fabrication facility. I have no clue what these
Right.
things represent, but would like a clarification on that, maybe from Deputy Miles. Tabitha?
On what these things represent?
Yeah, what these codes represent and
So
what's required of the
527
applicant.
CMR, which is the Massachusetts Fire Safety Code, I'm sure you're aware of that. And then particularly to Chapter 41, welding, cutting, and hot work, and also NFPA Standard 51B for fire prevention during welding, cutting, and other hot work.
Is there any way I could also have a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Or you can forward it to me later, that'd be fine. I just want to make sure we know all the applicable regulations. I'd be glad to go through that.
Yeah, I think that's the last thing, is to make sure we're complying with all the fire requirements. You know, now it's specific to the welding operation.
Anything else? So we'd want to continue this
Continue it,
to our next meeting, which is what, December 19th?
December 19th. We will be setting a public hearing for the other special permit 720, so we could put this at 725.
Okay.
So 725 on December 19th.
Great, thank you.
Do you need a motion for that?
Please.
I'll make a motion, we continue the special permit site plan modification for SP 474A to December 19th at 7:25?
725.
7:20.
25.
25.
25.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? We'll see you on the 19th.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll
See ya.
follow up with you tomorrow. I'll follow up with you.
Oh, yeah, tomorrow's fine, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Because we gave him a special modification for this, to have the turnaround facility over his treatment, over his catch basins. Didn't we do a special permit for that?
I don't think it was at that meeting.
For what?
The,
Didn't we do a plan modification so he could do this underground thing and create the
No.
turnaround? Oh,
I know we talked about it when he was
We
here.
talked about
Yeah.
it because he's been talking about it for a couple months now, but we permitted the infiltration basin in that corner.
okay. Good.
Okay. Anything else for tonight?
We have to approve the bills? Did we do that?
No, we did that.
No?
Yep, Bill's minutes approved.
All right.
Quick meeting.
I guess the only other thing in order would be a motion to adjourn.
I'm not making it.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.